everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. Here again to remind you that this is the best season of your life. I want to give a shout out to those of you that meet me here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. I want you to know that I see you. Thanks for taking the time to join me every Thursday, again at 2 p.m. Central Time. This is a once a week broadcast. And obviously, you have it on your calendar because I see you. I also want to give a shout out to those of you that get a chance to watch the show. And it's available 24/7 on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. It's on my Facebook page and it's on my Facebook profile page. So thank you. I know that you have also mentioned those of you that watch it later, get to watch it later, based on your schedule and all that. The point is, I know that you have told me that you have to watch it anonymously. Why? Because you cannot afford for your church community to find out that you're watching this program. And that's okay. That's good. It's wise for you to do that, so that if you're not ready yet to come into that place of your true authentic self, then it's step by step. I understand perfectly. This show is not for everyone. It is not. And even though there's nothing illegal, immoral, unethical about my show, but it does have to do with, some may consider it controversial simply because it goes against the grain. It goes against tradition. It goes against conventional norms, and it goes against people that have been indoctrinated from, well, whenever, whether it's they were, raised in the church or became a Christian. But the point is, it goes against religious doctrine. And when I say religious doctrine, I'm talking about the Christian doctrine, simply because that's the doctrine that I followed for many years. I left that doctrine years ago, um, and have been on my own for over 15 years. But, well, not over 15 years this year, actually. The point is this. Um, this show actually didn't start out this way. This was not, you brought me here. You brought me here. This show started out to be the happy mindset, which had to do with creating a mindset that helps you navigate through the life with joy and contentment and happiness, and just really living a life of pleasure. Because my philosophy is, the purpose of life is pleasure. Pleasure is what we are created for. All the other stuff happens by default. All the other stuff, the setbacks, the accidents, maybe the all that other stuff happens by default. But if you focus on the joy of living, being in the moment, creating a meaningful life, then that is what you attract, more so than the negative stuff. And it does, negative things happen to all of us, whether you're Christian or whether you're non-Christian. It happens to all of us, and the way we handle it makes the difference. So this show started out being the happy mindset, and I was okay with that. And then, with time, there were little changes that I made, and but then when I started this whole journey of self discovery, because come to find out, it was difficult for people to attain a happy mindset because people don't know who they are. And most people don't know who they are. And my thing is this, growing up, by the time you were 3 to 5 years old, your indoctrination started. And that happens by default. Whatever you're taught at home, your parents, your family, your teachers, and then if you go to church, the Sunday school teacher, the pastor, you are start absorbing information from all angles. And you grow up thinking, believing, and, behaving accordingly because that's all you know. And unless you come into a place, that's why you see a lot of teenagers, they go through this stage of rebellion. Why? Because they want to bring out the real them. They no longer want to submit to those thoughts and rules and regulations and laws and all that. They want to come out. They want to be themselves. They want to be their true authentic selves. And we identified, or the parents identified, as rebellion. They rebellious kids. And I think there is a scripture in the Bible that says something that rebellion is bound up in the heart of kids, or something of that nature. And you got to beat it out, or whatever. The point is this: that's the period when kids are start breaking out. They want to break out. Well, unless you have gone through that journey, unless you have gone through that journey of self discovery, then you are uh, living an identity that's not really yours. You're living an identity that's been imposed upon you by what you have learned, by what you grew up with, by what. For me, I didn't grow up in a religious uh, household. I became born again Christian in my adult life, and followed that doctrine for many years and so forth. So, you know, that's what this show started out being, going through a journey of self-discovery. And then you said that it's a challenge because you came to a place where you had a, you got stuck. Why? Because it conflicted with your religious beliefs. It conflicted with the things you believe, and you didn't know how to reconcile, trying to be free and live a certain way. Uh, and again, my definition of life, that it's for pleasure, that is my thing. You can come up with your own. If that doesn't resonate with you, then that's fine. It doesn't resonate with you. But for me, that's the way I live my life, and it works for me. That's the whole thing. It has to work. And that's why I say that when you believe what you believe, you have to know why you believe what you believe. Otherwise, you'll be just believing because it was imposed upon you. I heard a guy said the other day, it was some kind of political journalist that was asking people who they will vote for, and and they asked this guy. He's going to be 19, but this is the first time he's voting. So they asked him, "Who are you going to be voting for?" And he said a particular party. And so the reporter asked him, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, I don't know." He says, I grew up in that party. All my family talk about that party. All my family, vote in that party. And that's what I know." And I thought, that's pretty shallow because he hasn't really done his research. He doesn't know any policies about the candidates, what they stand for, what they promise or offer. No, nothing at all. He knew nothing at all. All he knew is that he's going to vote for this particular party because that's the way he grew up. That's what was in his family, and that's what he knows. The same thing applies to religion. A lot of people, they grew up in the church, and you don't know why you believe what you believe. Just think about it. You have no idea you believe what you believe. There was this girl in she belonged to a church. She's an adult. I would say I really don't know her age, but based on the comment, the writing, she said she got pregnant out of wedlock, and I guess it became a big thing in the church. And so she was asked, or she was told, actually, she was told that she needed to go before the whole congregation and ask for forgiveness because she got pregnant out of wedlock. And I said, "That's interesting." I said, "Well, how the hell do you get pregnant out of wedlock? You get pregnant because you had sex." But Out of wedlock is part of a religious doctrine that she adhered to. Now, whether she did it or not, I don't know. But just imagine, um, she got pregnant and she was told that she needs to go before the whole congregation and ask for forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness, again, not that she slept with the guy, with her boyfriend, but that because she got pregnant. And, getting pregnant is just revealing what's done in the dark. Mind you, there are a whole bunch of other people that may be having sex. It's become such a big thing. And, I'm talking about this because if you were involved in religious doctrine and you're following a doctrine not knowing why, then you have to really take a pause and ask yourself, why is that? Why do I believe what I believe? As a matter of fact, I don't even know, why did she have to go and reveal that to her pastor or the elders of the church or the mothers of the church? I don't know what the hierarchy is, but why did she even have to tell them? Unless she was asking for help from the church, which I don't think was the case. And then they are saying that you must go before the whole congregation to ask forgiveness? Why? Like, what sin did she commit against the congregation? And first of all, this sin thing is just, again, a doctrinal construct. It's a doctrinal construct. So I'm thinking, why is that? When you think of it and when you think of religion, think of it this way. Because especially this whole thing about sex, it's such a big thing. And today there is a mass exodus. In case you're not aware, just read the statistics. There is a mass exodus from churches, whether it's evangelical or uh, Protestant, apostolical, Christian, there is a mass exodus. And particularly the younger generation, they're not putting up with this whole doctrinal thing to live and conduct their lives in such a manner. Take sex, for instance. Like, sex. And when you think of it, you have to ask yourself, what God would create you in such a way and then ask you to restrain from that, from the passions, the desires, the wants, the need, once your body start going through the changes. There's puberty and then there's an adult, and you don't even have to do something. It's not like a switch that you turn off and on. Now, maturity and freedom to make a decision, you have that. But sexual desire is like, do you know when you want to sneeze? You want to sneeze and you're like, and if it goes away, it's such a it feels so awful. Like if it goes away and it doesn't really come out, or if you have to uh, physically relieve yourself, that is a need that you have. That is a necessity. That's your body. Just you have to go, potty. That's just so. When you talk about sex, just imagine a God that creates you and design you in such a way that you will have uh, physical desires, sexual desires once you reach a certain age. And you go through life with those desires. That's the reason why a lot of people go through self pleasure. And that's normal. A lot of people, you know it because you pleasure yourself, whether it's male or female. Self pleasure is a natural thing, unless you have a partner. But who says he has to be your husband? That is a religious construct. That is a religious construct. And I think it's actually wicked for a God, the God that's taught in the Christian religion, to create us in such a way and design our bodies with such needs, uh, a need for ecstasy, for pleasure of that nature, and then tell us no. There was this girl, her name was Sherry. This is years ago. I remember because the church that I attended, I used to teach a class. I used to have not a class, it was like a kind of a Bible study fellowship once a month or something like that. And it was fun. And they were all college professionals and so forth. And Sherry was really she was really into the word, and her thing was evangelism. And Sherry wanted to go out and evangelize and just talk to people about Jesus and so forth. So anyway, Sherry moved out from her mother's house, and she got herself an apartment because she had graduated from college and working, and so she got herself an apartment. And her next door neighbor was a single guy. And she just knew that she was going to go and witness. That's what it's called, witness, evangelize to her next door neighbor. And she would go I don't know how often she went, but she visited him, with the whole idea. Her thoughts, her intentions, her mindset was really bent on sharing the gospel with her neighbor. I am really, I'm convinced that was her pure motive, because because Sherry was just so committed to Christ. Well, come to find out, Sherry got pregnant. She became pregnant by the same neighbor. They weren't dating. She became pregnant by the same neighbor she intended to evangelize, to witness to. And she wound up having the baby for the guy. Now you tell me, that was not her plan. That was not her plan. Were they married? No. Were they dating? No. I don't think so at that time. Her plan was to go and evangelize to the guy. And evidently there was some attraction. It doesn't matter the details. The point is, Sherry became pregnant for the guy, her neighbor. That's life. I kind of lost touch with them and so forth, so I don't know what happened after that. All I know is that she got pregnant for the guy. And that's just one of those things that, you are warned to, against fornication and all of that kind of stuff. But then just think that, when I left religion, I started rethinking all those thoughts, all those things that I just wondered who created all that. In my mind, I know, again, you need to do your own research, that man created, wrote the Bible and created this God. For me, it wasn't an imaginary God, because it's nothing that I can prove. And I'm telling you as well, in your mind, if you serve, worship, praise a God, that God is imaginary. That's just the way it is. Whether you accept it or not, whether you believe it or not, that's just the truth. You just have to be intellectually honest with yourself. Come to terms with that. But I would ask all these questions. I would wonder, there's certain religions, in a couple weeks ago, I taught about how these different religious sects were created. You know, the Baptist, the Protestant, the Episcopal, the Adventist, the Jehovah's Witness, the serpent, the serpent Christianity, serpent handling Christianity, the Mormons, Latter Day Saints, all of those. I shared how they were created. They were just, I don't like the way you do things, and I'm going to just go start my own. As a matter of fact, now there was an article, or I think it was on CNN, a news network, that shared that there is now a stark division among Christian evangelicals and other Christian, because now it's a divide, and this is because of politics, because of political situation, political choices that people are making. You've got some Christians that are sticking with one candidate, and here's another group that's saying no, because we have seen that this person is not uh follow the rules, no, follow the steps of Jesus, and so forth. And this group thinks that the person is sent by God, that is sent by God, and all of that. So the point is this: now there's a division. They are now dividing. I don't know if there's going to be the point is this: they are dividing now. There is a rift between evangelicals and the other faction. I don't know if it's, and the point is that they are now divided. And my point is, if everybody's hearing from God, then God, that is omnipotent, has the power to make sure that everyone everyone have the same understanding. Everyone should be hearing the same doctrine, the same, at least, if God is talking about the same candidate, then everyone should at least know that. But no, 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 no. Here, over here, they are thinking about a certain, they have a certain belief system. And then over here, they're saying, no, we are done with that. We are done with that behavior that is no reflection of how Jesus is. What would Jesus do? That behavior does not reflect the teachings of Jesus. So this part over here, this group over here, they want, but it's interesting because years back, they were in full support of this candidate, the whole evangelical community, because of the influence of, church getting involved in politics and all. And the whole evangelical community, some people said, well, I just vote a certain way because my pastor says to vote, to choose a particular candidate. Imagine that. So everybody used to vote for a particular candidate, but now, there's now a division. So my point is, not they're not getting the same message. And you would imagine that if God, that's omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, knows what's going on, knows what this is, according to the doctrine. Again, this whole thing was created by man. So it's important that you understand that. And again, I am talking to those of you that are seeking, that are asking questions, that are concerned, that are doubtful, that are feeling stifled because you know that there is something else about life that you wish to experience, and you want out. You want clarity on this whole Christian doctrine. And it's something that you have to discover for yourself. When I left Christianity, I didn't go looking, there's some steps that I went through. And it was interesting because there's some steps that I went through, and I left, and then I start questioning all the things that I used to believe, like, just things that didn't make sense. And I went to do research because, I started from the garden, and I started questioning God, and what kind of a God are you, based on what I'd been taught. And then there was a talking snake, and then there's Adam and Eve had no idea what good or bad evil was. They didn't know anything about that. They didn't even know about you shall surely die. They didn't know what that is. Why? Because they were just pure and innocent. Think about it. Go back and read it. They were placed in the garden, and then God said, the day you eat of this fruit, your eyes will be open, you'll get to know what good and evil is, and you shall surely die. Well, they didn't know what good or evil was, and they didn't know when they say you shall surely die. And then, of course, there's this whole thing about spiritual death, which no one can explain, or physical death. Well, we know that they didn't die physically. So I start questioning all of that. And as I, came to realize, wait a minute, how did I even allow myself to absorb that kind of teaching without questioning it? I was disappointed in myself, but then I thought, well, that's fine. My life was good, and there was no church hurt, there was no trauma, there was no pain, there was no suffering that I went through. Just I lived a lie for a very long time. I lived a lie for many years, and when I met my husband, I dragged him into that walk, and he said, cross my leg over here, and he said that's what love does, because he didn't grow up that way. So anyway, so as I was checking all of that out to find out why did I believe what I believed, as I was checking that out, then I thought, you know what? I'm not religious. I'm going to be spiritual. I am not. I am not religious, but I'm spiritual. And so I got rid of all, in my mind, because it's all in your mind. I got rid of all the religious doctrine and all that, all the construct and all the this and that, the rules, the laws, the commands, and all that kind of stuff. I got rid of all that. I was no longer um, convinced of any of that. I came to the point where I knew there's no hell and there's no heaven. There's no punishment or reward for my behavior. And if there was a God that offered that or that threatened that, then that's not the God that I would want to serve at all. So I was okay with that. So I thought I would be spiritual. I thought I would be spiritual. And then I came to the point I could not even articulate, I could not even define what was that. What was me? Because there are a lot of people today, they say, oh, I'm not spiritual. No, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. Well, what is that? What does that mean? You have to be able to you have to know why. What made me spiritual? What was that? What is spirit? Consciousness, awareness? Well, I have that. It's consciousness, because I didn't subscribe to any gods. I didn't subscribe to any other religious belief. I didn't subscribe to any of that. I didn't. And because I could not define it, but there are some folks that were also going through that transition of uh, exiting from religion. And I kind of picked it up from that. And then there was this other thing about oneness, the oneness doctrine or something like that. We are one. And look, I kind of, for a minute, kind of glance at that for a second. I could not articulate. I didn't know what it was. I did not know what all that was, from being I knew what being religious was, but then from religious to being spiritual, I didn't know what that was. So I thought, I'm done. I am done. I'm not spiritual. And this whole oneness thing, oh, none of that applies to me. I don't even call myself an atheist or an agnostic. No, I got rid of all the labels. I'm a realist. If you said there's a God, let's have a chat. And you can believe whatever you believe. As a matter of fact, I have great respect for anyone that follows a religious doctrine, because I did. And I was in a pew warmer. I was involved. Every church that I attended, I was an active member of that church. So I know the passion that people have about their religion. And it's interesting because most people that are so passionate about religion, people do things by default, out of on autopilot. People just do things on autopilot. As a matter of fact, there was a story the other day, that someone told on a podcast, and they asked her, "When did you began your religious deconstruction?" And she said, "I was 7 years old, and we were at the table getting ready for dinner. We all held hands and prayed, and they started eating, and she got sick at the table." She said she got sick. She became ill. She became so ill, um, turned out to be food poisoning. They had to take her to the ER. They had to take her to the emergency room. And 7 years old, she said, "But we prayed. We prayed at the table." So she could not process that. If we prayed to bless the food, that it would be nourishment for our bodies, and to bless the hands that prepared it, and to bless us as we consume the food, why did she get food poisoning that so bad that she was taken to the hospital, to the ER? She could not understand that. 7 years old. And as she grew, she went to church, and she heard things, and the preaching and the teaching and all the dogma and whatever. And she always grew questioning until she became an adult. She's a young adult. And she said, "That's it." She started digging and searching and asking and looking and researching and all that, until she came to her own conclusion that all this has been made up. It's all made up doctrine by man, imposed upon humanity. And if you don't know that, you will go through life, all your life. She said she went through life, and she remembers going through just things, puberty and so forth. And then she met someone, and she got pregnant, and then she met someone, she didn't get married, and she met someone else, and she got pregnant again. And she was just lost, and she lived in such guilt and shame and judgment and condemnation, and she just hated herself because she missed the mark, and she didn't understand. She loved her kids, but she knew that they were born, conceived out of wedlock, and that was a big thing for her. It was a big thing. She didn't know what to do, and she just thought of herself as bad, and she worked to take care of her kids and so forth. But in her mind, she was a bad mother because her children did not have, well, an active dad in their lives. So, what do you say about that? But you see, the thing is, she discovered it for herself, and that is exactly what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to discover it for yourself. And as you continue, see, the fact that you are asking questions, the fact that you are seeking, the fact that you are wondering, questioning the veracity of your religious doctrine. Now, again, I'm talking to you that have questions, not you that's already, like embedded in the religion and have strong belief system. If that's your path, then that's okay. You go on your path and you just do whatever works for you. There's nothing, again, this is not good or bad, right or wrong, true or false. This is just a fact of life. And for me, I wanted to live a certain way. I wanted to have certain freedom of mind, of conviction, a knowledge of self, and be able to walk in my own authenticity and address people and really love on people and mean it. And when I do stuff, I remember um when I was dating my husband, and I talk about, when I was dating my husband, when I was in church, I was active in church. I used to teach in Bible school, intimacy with the Father. And then I used to teach another class on uh, God wants you to prosper. Two classes. The one on intimacy with the Father, it was like there were like 50 students in that class on a Wednesday night, right over here at the church. Word of faith. I used to teach intimacy with the Father. As a matter of fact, I have a friend, and she said, that prayer that you wrote, because I wrote a prayer based on scriptures and all that kind of stuff, that she says, I still have that prayer and I still say that prayer. Of course, I don't have any of that because I don't believe in any of it. But at that time, I was so deep into the religious doctrine. I really believed that. I believed it. I followed it. I breathed it. I lived by it. I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go walking by the lake close to where I live. And I used to go walking like 4 miles, and I would pray in the spirit, pray in tongues, and just that was my time of of course, time to get my walking, but to praise God and worship God and talk to God and just tell God how I felt about Him, and just really deep into the religion. And then I would come back to the house and I would put on my praise and worship, and I would spend time worshiping and worship, and I was just really into it. You could not tell me anything about God. And at the time, I was not dating. I was not dating, and I was not interested in dating. I was career minded. So, I wasn't interested in, that just wasn't in the forefront of my mind. And, and I did that for a few years. And then I met my husband through someone at the church. And he was from outside of my camp. He was not part of my camp at all. My community, my church community. He was not, as a matter of fact, he was not even like evangelical Christian or Protestant. He was none of that. He was like, he grew up Episcopal. And that's just like, there's pageantry, and, he was an altar boy and all of that. And he just didn't, he was not religious at all. He was simply not religious. He was not a God fearing man. He was not a man of God. He was not a man of God, of a man after God's own heart. He was none of that. He was not religious. He was simply a man of moral character, a man of integrity, a man of principles, a man that had a deep sense of self. He came with joy, and he came with a boatload of joy, and he came with love to give. to offer. That's what he was. That is the kind of man. So, and it's interesting because at church, because of the position that I was in, a Bible believing woman of God, because I was considered that a woman of God, a God fearing woman. I had all those things about me, and he was from outside. I was expected to, if I showed up with any man or whatever, it was supposed to be a man of God, a God fearing man, a man of the cloth. As a matter of fact, somebody told me that, a man of the cloth. But I didn't. I met my husband through a friend from church. She was also a friend from church. And, she saw me years ago. And when I first started going to that church, she saw me when she realized that I spoke Spanish. And she was just shocked. She's like, oh my gosh, I've got this friend. Well, I just went on. 4 years later, because during that time, she'd been inviting my husband to come to that church, but he just never came because he was not interested in that. When he finally decided to come, there was a banquet. There was a banquet that was being done, and they were going to honor all of the Bible school uh, teachers, and I was one. So they invited him to come, and I didn't know. I had no idea what was going on. And he finally showed up. He showed up, and again, I knew nothing of it. They called me from over here at the podium and had me come down, and I met this gentleman. Now, I didn't know anything about him at all. I know he was a hot tamale, but I wasn't even thinking in those terms because, again, I didn't know the guy. I didn't know if he was a married man. I didn't know anything about him because no one had told me anything about him. So they had the whole presentation and gave me an award and all of that, and myself and the other teachers and so forth. And then it was time for, it was over, and I didn't, I didn't drive to the place. I didn't drive to the place because I didn't have a car. I didn't have a car at that time. So they said, he can take you home. I said, no. I said, I'll go home with, these, the children's pastor. They were friends of mine. And I said, no, I just met the guy. And they said, our mutual friend, was suggesting that I go home with, just to have him take me home. I said, no. And so I went with my friends. Now, my friends met him as well. My friends also had met him. And so they were saying, they said something like, she is either dead, or she is cold as ice. Because she's like, gosh, this guy, tall and dark and handsome, and he's got green eyes and all of that. Well, I wasn't impressed by that. That was fine, but I knew nothing. If I perhaps, and I think it's good that I didn't know, because if I knew, I would probably have been thinking differently. But I didn't know, so I was, when I said no, I'm not gonna have some stranger drive me home. So anyway, so I'm in the car with the children's pastor and his wife, and they said, "What do you think about Noel?" And I'm like, "Who's Noel?" Because I would say, when I met him, I said, "¿Cómo estás, caballero?" Caballero is Spanish for gentleman, and it goes better in Spanish than in English, because you don't say "Hi, gentlemen." No, I said, "Hola, caballero," and that's what I would call him, caballero. And I said, "Oh no," I said he's fine. I mean, I had no comment because I didn't really pay attention. I was there at the banquet because they were going to honor me and myself and some other Bible school teachers and so forth. So time went on, and we finally got together. We another friend arranged a luncheon because he never used to come to my church. That wasn't his thing. He wasn't, again, he was not a God fearing man. He was a man. He went to church. He went to his Episcopal church, and that's like in and out, 60 minutes. That's it. Sometimes 55, 45 minutes in and out. They don't spend a lot of time with a lot of all that. They don't do that. So he would go to his church on Sunday. And then, anyway, so he met us and whatever. The bottom line is we got together and we went out and started dating. I remember it was New Year's Day, and we had gone out to visit family friends of mine. And on the way back, he said, I would like to I would like to see you more often and so forth. Anyway, the point is, we started dating, and we dated for 2 years. Now, imagine that. Here I am, a woman of God, and he had his own place. My husband had his own place, but I didn't. I did. I have my own place. I did, but then after I moved in with a family pastor and his wife, they were friends, and they had this big house. And anyway, I went to live with them, and that was kind of even better because me being alone and blah blah. I started to date this guy, and anyway, it was a whole bunch of religious narrative, lot of religious stuff. And, everybody is looking because for the length of time that I was at that church, they had never seen me date anyone. Again, that was by choice. I was career minded, and there wasn't anyone that really raised my interest. So it wasn't something that I was like looking for a guy or praying for a husband. That just wasn't me at that time. And when I met him, and then of course after I realized that he was single and never been married and da da da, and then his character, his personality, the integrity, he's a responsible man. And the way he treated me, like he because my dad told me earlier in life that I deserve to have a good life. So being treated special and like a lady and all that, I expected that. That was something that I expected. I did. I did. And he was that. So we dated. We dated for 2 years. We dated for 2 years. I remember one time he said he wanted to go to San Antonio. He said, let's go to San Antonio and spend the weekend. And I said to him, I said, well, you're going to have to get 2 rooms. He said, what? He said, you got to be kidding. Of course, that was a deal breaker. We just not going to San Antonio. He wasn't like push around at all because that's not what he had in mind. He thought we'll go to San Antonio, have a good time, and share a room and so forth. We were, again, I was a woman of God. I was still teaching in Bible school and all of that and so forth. And anyway, the point is, we dated for 2 years. And I am telling you, boy, 2 years, I had the hots for that guy. I had the hots for my husband because I was attracted to him sexually, not only emotionally and mentally, but I was attracted to him. And I had to restrain myself because of the religious construct of, fornication and all that kind of stuff. And, came a point that I had to deal with that. And that's when I decided that whatever I did personally in my life, whatever my sexual life was, it was a private and personal matter. It was nobody's business. It was nobody's business. I made that decision. Got rid of all the frustration and all that. Got rid of all the frustration. I made that decision. I made that decision. I'm so glad I did, because until this day, we are still passionate about each other, because one of the teachings that is that if you have sex before marriage and whatever, that later in your married, there was a whole bunch of theories that it wouldn't work, you break up, this, that, the other, and a whole bunch of stuff. I did not care. It was my life, and I made a decision that was personal and private. I like the way I think. Even going back then, and again, I was still meshed in the religion. So anyway, we got married and had a great life. We left that church because there was some stuff going on at that church. Well, we had left when we got married anyway because my husband did not want to go to that church. But there were some things with that church. The pastor was caught, end up in adultery, and the church broke up. The pastor left. It was just a mess. Left his wife, married this person, left her, married a second person. It was just a mess. It was just human experience. So we went to another church, and we were at that church for quite some time. We were at that church for a long time. And again, we together were active members. We were directors of King's Ministry, and all of that had to do with living a prosperous life. And until this, of course, and then 15 years ago, 2009, we left. That's when my husband said, I'm done with this. I'm done with this doctrine, this religion, and But when you think of it, you can't, you can't drink. We had somebody that visited us, and we served wine at our house because we enjoy having a glass of wine, and they said, and I said, would you like a glass of, we generally have something else, that grape drink or something like that for people that don't drink, which is fine with us. You're not forced to do anything with us. And so they said, well, I'll have a little bit. And then they said, well, perhaps I shouldn't. And then they wound up not having a glass of wine, but they really wanted to. So can you imagine that kind of stress? Like, why? Why would you not have a glass of wine if that's what you really want? Why? Because of religious construct. Why would you not wear makeup? Why? Because of religious construct. Why would you not wear jewelry? Why? Because of religious construct. What does that have to do with anything? Think of it. Why would you not wear shorts? Because of religious construct. Think of it. What does that have to do with anything? Why would you not eat shrimp? Now, if it's because of your health, I can understand that. Why would you not eat pork? If it's because of your health, I can understand that. But if it's because of something someone came up with, dress modestly, you can't wear a shirt with a little, with a little, sex appeal and all that. What is wrong with that? Think of it. And what God would submit you to those limitations and those constraints in life? That is just not fair. You know why? Because in us, that God places the desire to live and to enjoy the pleasures of life, to go out and to have fun, to dance, and to watch a movie. And if you have a partner and you feel, sexual, to enjoy sex without guilt, without judgment, without shame. They just messed it up. One pastor on social media, she talks about, sex is strictly for marriage and all that. Of course, she's married, but you don't, you mind your own damn business. You mind your own business and let people just do what they need to do. If you're an adult, then you just, what you need to do. You take care of yourself. You do whatever you need to do, but you are an adult. And we don't have business meddling in other people's business. And if somebody gets pregnant, to have them come before the church to ask for forgiveness, what the hell for? Come on. Why? What does that, what, how would that change anything? Think of it. How would that change anything? How would that change anything? How would that change? So they go before the church and ask for forgiveness. And she becomes the laughing stock of the community, the church community. Everybody is talking about her. In the meantime, everybody else is having sex. They just haven't gotten pregnant. Even the pastor, he just hasn't gotten pregnant. Except for, another situation I know where the pastor gets a few members of the church pregnant. And then some are discovered having sexually abused the members of the church. Happens all the time. So again, my friend, you have to know why you believe what you believe. Does it make sense to you? Punishment and reward. Does that make sense to you? What kind of a God is that? And when you think of it, that's why, and there are some people that take pleasure in telling people you're going to hell. Fortunately, some of us, we're not afraid of that because we don't believe in that. Like in my house, when we left church, like in my house, and we don't talk devil, Satan, Lucifer. We don't, and that character has become irrelevant. Same with God. We don't say, God bless you, or thank God, or God this and God that. That's not part of our makeup. That's not part of our lives. And because we don't mention it, that character has also become irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. No apologies. We respect you and the God that you serve, but in our lives, he's irrelevant. No relevance at all. And if we had to worship a God, it wouldn't be a God like that. It would be a God that acknowledges that he is giving us desires and pleasures and all the things for a fruitful and life of pleasure, and a God that would ask us, are you enjoying yourself? Did you enjoy it? Are you living a life that you desire? The ecstasy that you have. It would be a God that would take pleasure in seeing us delight in the life that we have available to us. Not a God that is punishment and reward, and a God that obliges us to obedience to Him. Forced to love, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. Command to love and to worship and praise. Not that kind of God. That would not be the God that we serve. I'm going to leave you with that, my friend, so that you can give it some thought for yourself and continue to do your research, because I know you are, so that you can come away with a clear mind and not feeling obliged, or not feeling any kind of way, or guilty, because that's what happens. So you'll come away with no guilt, no shame, no blame, none of that. And we will talk again next Thursday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here. And if you can't make that date with me, check out the icons: Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube 24/7. If you can't make it 2 o'clock Central Standard Time next Thursday. I'll see you then. In the meantime, if you need to drop me a note, go to info at thecynthialinoxshow.com and drop me a note and I will respond to you. I am also a certified life coach. And if you need someone to walk alongside with you, I'm your girl. Info at thecynthialinoxshow.com and I will get back to you. I offer a 30-minute um, complimentary chat just to make sure that you're comfortable and vice versa. And we take it from there. In the meantime, I'm going to say au revoir. Enjoy a wonderful weekend. Of course, you have Friday before the weekend. Enjoy. Uh, Go to work on Friday for those of you that are still in the workforce and enjoy. Have a fantastic weekend. Ciao, amigos. Au revoir. Hasta la vista. See you then.